Hello, my name is Cody Johnson, and this is my presentation over law enforcement and correctional interview. My first interviewee was Sergeant Jeff Johnson of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Sergeant Johnson is a part of the Division of Drug and Crime Control, as well as a 20-year veteran of law enforcement. My second interviewee was Brandon Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong is a probation and parole officer and has been for 2 years. The first question I asked Jeff Johnson during the interview process was, "Why do you think people commit crimes?" His response was, "People commit crimes out of the need to survive, monetary gain, jealousy, or just plain criminal behavior." My second question was, "Do you think younger people commit crimes for different reasons than older people?" His response was, "More often than not, a person will commit a crime as a way of continuing their lifestyle." So I guess the answer to this question is it depends on the person. The next question was, "Do you think men commit crimes for different reasons than women?" Sergeant Johnson responded with, "Men normally commit crimes for reasons of monetary gain or love, and women typically commit crimes out of an act of love." The next question was, "Why do you think some people stop committing crimes?" Sergeant Johnson's response was incarceration or a change in their lifestyle. Number 5 was, "Do you think that people's reasoning for committing property crimes vary from people's reasoning for committing violent crimes?" He responded with, "Yes, property crimes are for monetary gain. A violent crime can be committed for monetary gain or love/jealousy." Number 6 was, "What do you think can be done to prevent people from committing crimes in the first place?" Sergeant Johnson's response was education and mentorship. Number 7 was, "Do you think that all crime can be prevented? Why or why not?" Sergeant Johnson responded with, "No, since the beginning of time we have had violations of the rules, Adam and Eve, and I feel it will only get worse as society continues to have a decline in morality." Question 8 was, "Do you think the clashing of different cultures can create more crime?" Sergeant Johnson responded with, "Yes, look at the turn of the century. A more recent example of this is the Honduras gangs in the United States." The last question I asked Jeff Johnson during the interview was, "In your opinion, is crime increasing or decreasing as advances in the understanding of the psychology of the minds of criminals increases?" He responded with, "Increasing. I do not believe an increase in the understanding of psychology of criminals is relevant to crimes being committed. Regardless of how much we understand about the criminal mind, if there is still a decline in morality, as I mentioned earlier, there will not be any improvement." The next interviewee, Mr. Armstrong, I proceeded to ask the same questions. One being, "Why do you think people commit crimes?" Brandon Armstrong's response was, "I believe it is through their upbringing, their self-esteem, and a general lack of social skills." The next question was, "Do you think younger people commit crimes for different reasons than older people?" Mr. Armstrong stated, "Yes, I believe younger people commit crimes with peer pressure being a great motivator." Number 3 was, "Do you think men commit crimes for different reasons than women?" Mr. Armstrong differed from Mr. Johnson's response by saying, "No, they are committing all the same types of crimes for the same motivations." Number 4 was, "Why do you think some people stop committing crimes?" Mr. Armstrong stated, "Maturing as they get older plays a big role when individuals stop committing crimes, I believe." Number 5 was, "Do you think that people's reasonings for committing property crimes vary from people's reasoning for committing violent crimes? Mr. Armstrong responded by saying, yes, property crimes are committed under monetary motivation, while violent crimes are committed to create a victim. Number 6 stated, what do you think can be done to prevent people from committing crimes in the first place? Mr. Armstrong's response was, a better education system and a thriving economy can all contribute to a decrease in crimes. Number 7 stated, do you think that all crimes can be prevented? Why or why not? Brandon Armstrong stated, no, human nature will always play a role when dealing with individuals committing crimes, and human nature cannot be changed. Number 8 said, do you think the clashing of different cultures can create more crime? Mr. Armstrong said, yes, the stark differences between different cultural values and religions can create crime. The last question I asked Mr. Armstrong was, in your opinion, is crime increasing or decreasing as advances in the understanding of the psychology of the minds of criminals increases? He stated, I believe crime is still increasing regardless of what advances are being made in these fields. A major problem is due to the lack of funding and overpopulation of prisons. Until these issues are addressed, I do not think any amount of research will decrease crime. My analysis over the two interviews was that they have very similar viewpoints. Many answers basically stated the same answer, worded differently. Mr. Armstrong's answers, I felt, reflected that of a correctional background for obvious reasons. They both had similar approaches to countering crime as well as reasons to why crimes take place. Overall, I believe both interviewees would share much in regards to theologies due to their similarities. Both would be classical thinking due to their approaches to crime. They would both possess aspects related to the Chicago School in relation to their responses to question 8 concerning crime in different cultures. The two theories represented by Mr. Armstrong's answers are subculture theory and differential association theory. Both of these theories relate to Mr. Armstrong's responses to questions involving youth and their inclination to peer pressure in various cultures, as well as his opinions on why crimes happen. As with Mr. Armstrong, Sergeant Johnson would also have subculture theory, as well as cultural conflict theory. My reasoning for including cultural conflict theory on Sergeant Johnson's list of theories was his elaboration on question 8. Sergeant Johnson brought up the example of immigration to the United States around the turn of the century and what impact it had on crime when different cultures lived in such close proximity to each other. As it relates to how these theologies would play out in the careers of the interviewees, there would obviously take different approaches to the same issues due to the nature of their jobs. Mr. Armstrong would be more likely to focus on getting parolees to the proper courses and support groups that could benefit them for the best and keep them from entering back into a life of crime. I believe Sergeant Johnson could exemplify his theories by using his position to educate the youth of poor urban areas on various pitfalls and problems with gangs and narcotics. I believe both of these actions exemplify the interviewees and their various theories. This concludes this presentation.